Hey guys, so I'm on my Mac, got my Rhodes on. Um, this is the first time I've used my laptop since I've made my last video at the October 7th, I believe, or October 8th. So yeah, that's how long I haven't used this laptop. Surprisingly, it still had battery. At least I think it had battery and I didn't charge it. Although I think I might have charged it once. But anyways, so I'm looking at everything, making sure that everything's right, and everything looks to be fine. I do not like the setup because they got to make the screen. It's like super small. Like I'm used to my 32-inch, and I get like a little bit like that big of a that size of a window for my face. The rest of it is ChatGPT at this moment. So it's not my favorite setup at all. Um, I am recording in 4K. At least I believe I am. I had to change settings on here. But let's see how this works. Okay, that's working. So today I'm going to be doing my monthly Q&A. And I'm interested in what this ChatGPT has to say. I just realized this. There's 5.1 instant, 5.1 thinking, and they're what? And they're going out on March 11th. But we got 5.3 and 5.4. I don't even know what's the difference. I mean, they probably brought back 4.0 for all I know, and they just named it, called it a different number. So, do we even have 5.0? I mean, I thought they got rid of 5.0. I thought we've been on 5.3. I thought they got rid of 5. I don't know if we had 5.1 or 5.2. I don't know what they're doing. Anyways, so we're gonna do a 10 questions for a Q&A for YouTube. All right, so 10 Q&A questions for the YouTube audience. 1. Let me get my notes out so I know I gotta minimize this. So let me get my notes out and type in the numbers. Hang on, where am I gonna write this at? I guess I could use notes. I want to make sure that I don't miss a question. So, question 1. What moment in your life permanently changed the way you see the world? You choose how literal or symbolic to answer. What moment in my life permanently changed the way I see the world? I mean, there's moments in my life where I've changed the way I see the world. They kind of like added more things. They never contradicted each other. They just added on and that was the first time was probably, I would say, about when I was 7 years old, around there. 7, 8, 9, around there. And then my teenager years when I was how old was I? I believe I was 18. And then there was another one when I was like 22. And then probably again when I was like 28. And then again when I was 30. And then from there, it just kind of built up faster and faster. Like, if not yearly, it'd be monthly, sometimes weekly. So there was no moment. It just kind of accelerated over time. Depending on what I was doing in life at the time. Whether it was in high school, college, whether things were going on in the world. That just kind of added on. Which I'm sure that everyone would feel the same way. So question number 2. I really need more screen space. How do you tell the difference between a pattern? How do you tell the difference between a pattern and a coincidence? This fits your entire framework of meaning versus randomness. That is a good question. How do you tell the difference between a pattern and coincidence? A coincidence, you have to change what that means for a person. I don't like the word coincidence. You guys know this. It's just because it's a vague word that depends on who's listening to. If someone said, "Oh, that's a coincidence," that can mean two different things on two different sides. The way that the words that I rather use are the words coincide plus what coincide means to fall together. It's neutral. Plus circumstance. So circumstances that coincide, like, is there evidence and things you could build on from there? And I see that as more than the randomness that people see. That it could be random, but if it's circumstances around what coincides, depends on whether or not that's more. If it's truly random, or it has patterns and meaning. Sorry, hang on a second. Sorry about that. Hang on. Let me do something first. I may have to edit that out. I'm putting my timestamp right here. So as I was saying, there's your circumstances. Does the circumstances change that neutral baseline to randomness, or does it produce it to something where it's actually meaningful? The word coincidence doesn't do anything for anyone. And how do I tell the difference between the two? You have to look for things. So, here and there, I try to look for things that I look at, like Dr. Phil episodes, for example, about people who have who are could be seen as having mental illness. And I look at things like, for example, there was this person I saw recently where someone was talking about how they're engaged to Putin and how he wears his different ties and his hand gestures, and that's a signal to them that she's going to be the Queen of Russia. And I was looking at that, and there was nothing I could see that put that together. There was no context beyond what she was just saying. There wasn't evidence or circumstances that you could think, okay, maybe there's something here. There wasn't that going on. And then there was also the religious aspect to it. Well, maybe not so much religious, but definitely the motifs of religion was in there. So there wasn't anything to go upon. So there was no patterns coinciding with each other where you could actually make it neutral. That just looked like randomness. So question 3. What do you think people consistently misunderstand about your work? Gives you the space to clarify without giving away too much. What do you think people... I think everything, really. There's always people who... They live their own lives, right? And when I come into the picture, it's like, what is this guy talking about? What does this have to do with me? Or some would say, well, that's just interpretation. Or it's an opinion. So it's like everything about me. Hang on a second. So I was checking something over there. So yeah, everything, pretty much. What do you think people consistently misunderstand about your work? Question 4. What's the difference between foresight and hindsight in your process? Let's talk about your recording, predictions, timelines. I don't know why this is a question. Foresight is the patterns. It's also, to understand this in the very layman terms, this doesn't explain everything, but this is kind of like a baseline where you could understand. Foresight is... I just had it, just escaped me. Foresight is knowing what can't be done. What can't they do? What are they limited to? What what presidents do, what people do, what are they limited to? And in the world that we live in, and understanding how people's psychology works and neurology, what can't people do? And you work from there, and you work backwards. That's not exactly what I do. But if you were trying to mimic or imitate what I do, that would be where you would start from. Question 5. Why do you think people reject certain truths even when they're in front of them? This ties directly into your themes of perception and rejection. It's because people have perceptions. And the world is so vast and so big that people will deny things because it would just sound like opinion to them. We live in a country where there's free speech and people can criticize, but the individual is drowned out by the collective. So what is a truth could be seen as an opinion to someone else. And that's kind of the bad thing about the country we live in. Some would say that that's a good thing. But if you're trying to actually get things done and try to communicate with people, you can't do it. And that's why things have to happen behind the scenes, and really why this channel exists, because of people's interpretations and perceptions of what opinion is. says even when they're in front of them, not clean the background, but if it's just because of opinions, people see them as opinions, and we are becoming very opinionated and devised in a divided world, at least within the United States. Maybe if I was talking about this stuff 20 years earlier, then people would understand, oh yeah, we understand now. But because it's so crowded and cluttered and there's so much noise, you can't get anything out. So there's that. So question 6. How much of your work is planned and how much emerges intuitively? Viewers always wonder this, and it plays into your layered style. Very few things are planned. By me, whenever I do a video or something, none of my videos are planned ahead of time. Well, there are some exceptions to that, kind of loose exceptions. Some of them are planned because there's certain things I want to talk about, but some of it just comes to me intuitively, and I talk about those kinds of things, and that's a majority of it. But then I write it down for later, and then I'll see how I can work into videos and when to talk about them. Question 7. If your entire audience could understand one thing you've been trying to show them, what would it be? Interestingly enough, it doesn't have parentheses on this question. The one thing I wish people could understand is I wish people could see me as me. See who I am, not like see the world that I can see. See just me, just who I am. That's what I wish people could understand. Just one day. Just one time. And I would greatly appreciate that. Now, saying that for the entire audience, that's a very high bar to reach, but I have high bars even for myself. Very high bars. 8. What's the biggest burden that comes with thinking the way you do? You choose the term philosophical, emotional, strategic. The biggest burden that comes with thinking the way you do? The biggest burden is this. Everyone else sees my stuff. Well, at least ChatGPT. ChatGPT sees my stuff as philosophical, and it tries to explain it in a way that I am trying to be straight, and it wants to do symbolic, philosophical, like zone right here, emotional. It wants to put in some sort of category. That's the biggest burden for ChatGPT. For people, the biggest burden is that there's always a disconnect. And it's hard to talk to people because they don't understand things at that level. It separates me from everyone else. And it's like, it's just who I am. And maybe I was always like that. And I was thinking about this with other things in recent days, where if I was a child and I knew what I knew now, would I speak the same way? And I would say yes. It's just who I am. I have the how about to say technology? I have the vocabulary, and I have the ability to talk about these things at a very high level But I was always capable of that at a young age. So, yeah, it was always different. I never fit in. So, question 9. Do you create your narratives to explain the world or to reveal what the world ignores? It uses these narratives. I guess you could say it's a narrative. It says fit your dual reality narrative approach. That's ChatGPT's interpretation. It always puts things on me. I just speak. I just speak on things I see. I look at things that don't make sense. If something doesn't make sense, I'm going to look into it and make a video about it because I know that 99.9% of the time, no one else is going to talk about it. And if they do talk about it, it's going to be on social media where it's about blaming who did what and who gets the blame and all that. It becomes political. So, yeah, it's nonsense to me. Question 10. If you could leave one message to the future audience watching your videos years from now, what would you tell them? This directly ties in with your 2032 video structure. I'll leave you with this. And this won't make sense now. I'm gonna say this in two different ways at the same time. But you won't know what that other way is until much later. You're still watching my videos. So here's my one message to the future audience watching now, who's watching years from now. What would you tell them? I'll tell you this. Be grateful that you don't have to experience things the way that I have to experience them. Be grateful that you're that you're not one of the people who don't want to be here and see all this happen and where you didn't have a choice in being here. Be grateful that you don't feel like that. And there's going to be some people who know what I'm saying there. Other people will think they know what I'm saying, but there's going to be people who agree, and they're exactly the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who didn't have a choice to live, but they wouldn't stay here if given the choice. If given the option, they would choose to leave. So I would say be grateful you're not one of those people. So guys, I know I'm out of frame, but I just wanted to do this video because it's part of my monthly 20 questions. 10 questions, I mean. So I hope that answers some of your questions, and if you have any questions, you're free to message me on my website, comiccon.store. Feel free to leave a comment if you want to. And that will be it for this video. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.